If you're struggling to make your vocals sound less harsh in the mix, today I'm going to show you how I use Soothe to accomplish that. So the backstory here is that I have struggled pretty harshly with harsh vocals for the majority of my mixing career. I would add a lot of EQ, a lot of high end, a lot of, 2K, 1K kind of stuff. And it would help them to cut through the mix, but I would be left with this really nasally sounding vocal. And I don't know how I kind of figured this out, but basically what I figured out was that I could boost those frequencies and then use a de-esser and something like a dynamic EQ. In this case, it's going to be Soothe to kind of just balance those two things out. So I have the EQ pushing into the de-esser, and Soothe and the de-esser are kind of pushing back. So it's this kind of balancing act and tightrope walk that they're doing together to go ahead and kind of accomplish the amount of high end and mid-range that I need for my vocals without having them sound a bit too harsh. Now, I do want to add that I am using some saturation to smooth some things out as well. I have a, tape saturator here on the bus where all my vocals are going through to have them give a bit more dynamic control and add a bit of smoothness. But today we're going to be focusing on Soothe, which is a very, very useful plugin. If you don't have this plugin, a dynamic EQ would work just as well. Just Soothe does it a little bit differently than a dynamic EQ. So we're going to go ahead and start with the de-esser here. I am using the R de-esser from Waves, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at how our vocal would sound without this de-esser going on.
Into everlasting madness, leave behind your humanity.
A little bit harsh on the high end, not too bad, but it can be controlled a little bit better. Now, the de-esser is going to be controlling the high end, and Soothe is going to be controlling more of the mid-range. So let's go ahead and focus on the high end for now. I'm going to turn on this de-esser, and I want you to hear how, although a de-esser is made to go ahead and work on the S's, like the T's, the pops, and all that stuff, it acts also as a control for the high end on the entire vocal.
Into everlasting madness, leave behind your humanity.
See, especially on that last phrase there, if I had that bypassed, it would kind of just jump out a little too much, and the high end would kind of pierce a little bit. Hear that one more time. That sounds a little bit more natural. Now, the high end is taken care of throughout the track. What about the mid-range? Well, there's really only one way I use Soothe here is I'm going to bypass these bands and just focus on this 1 to 2K range. And basically, I'm going to just go ahead and jog it around until I'm reducing it and it sounds a little bit smoother. I don't want to slam it. I just want to reduce some of the telephonic frequencies that I'm hearing. Yeah, see, that's a little too much already.
Into everlasting madness, leave behind your humanity. Into everlasting madness, leave behind your humanity.
You guys were paying attention. The frequencies that are really being removed are the ones like if you hold your nose and you kind of sound like this, those nasally frequencies. Those are the ones that are going to make your vocal tracks kind of sound a little bit lame. Certain, mixes, they sound good and you can get away with that. But most cases for metal mix, you want to kind of control those areas. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the delta, which is the inverted signal, so you guys can hear what's actually being taken out. Actually, I'm going to crank it so you guys can hear even more. So a lot of those nasally kind of weird, they're not really adding anything kind of frequencies. So let's go ahead and flip that back over. Let's go ahead and bring it back down to where it was. And let's go ahead and listen to what we have.
Into everlasting madness, leave behind your humanity. Open the structure of all.
And it's doing exactly what we want it to do. Soothe is soothing out the vocals. Now, you can do this with the dynamic EQ, where it only acts on the offending frequencies at a specific given time with the dynamic EQ. However, I have found since I've purchased Soothe that it does it a bit more automatically and is able to address the frequencies in real time versus a dynamic EQ, which is a bit more static. Now, you can automate the dynamic EQ to go ahead and kind of catch all of that, but that will take quite a bit of time. If you can afford it, I highly recommend getting Soothe. I don't just use it on vocals. I tend to use it on my overheads as well as guitars to do something similar where it's catching offending frequencies and smoothing out some of those frequencies in real time and only affecting the areas that I want it to affect when I need it to be affected. So let's go ahead and take a listen to how these vocals sound in the mix when I'm going to turn off Soothe and I'm going to turn it back on, and just pay attention how they sit a little bit better with Soothe and how they kind of jump out a little bit harshly without the Soothe. So as you can hear, Soothe was doing, again, its job. It was making the vocals pushed back a little bit. And if I turned it off, you guys can definitely hear that those harsh frequencies were jumping out just a little bit too much and were causing it to sound a little bit thin. With Soothe on, it thickened up the vocal because of the way our brains work with sound by reducing those harsh frequencies and injecting a bit of perceived body, smoothing everything out. So I really hope you guys found this tip useful. I absolutely love this plugin. It allows me to get really, really tight sounding vocals and add a ton of high end without having it sound harsh. Go ahead and leave me a like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me more than you guys know. And I'll catch you guys in the next